Imagine running a business with, like, just absolute clinical precision. A place where a single microgram error in a prescription could literally cost a life.
Right, the stakes are incredibly high, so every single process is double-checked. It's highly regulated.
Exactly. Everything is completely visible. But then, imagine that same brilliant, detail-obsessed business owner going into the back office, opening their laptop, and running their weekly payroll.
And accidentally committing 100 counts of wage theft before they've even finished their morning coffee.
Right. It is wild. Welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to uncover these massive hidden financial landmines that are just buried inside community pharmacies.
Yeah, it's a massive juxtaposition. You've got these owners operating with absolute exactness in their clinical work treating patients, balancing complex molecular interactions, but their back office systems are just, well, fundamentally misaligned with the reality of their operations.
And it's quietly building up a terrifying financial liability. So to guide us today, we're pulling from a really detailed blueprint put together by Trinity accounting practice.
It's titled Navigating Compliance, the Pharmacy Industry Award Payroll Guide.
Right. And just to set the scene for you listening, we are looking specifically at the realities of the Pharmacy Industry Award 2020. That's code MA00000102 in Australia as of June 2026.
What's fascinating here is the profound paradox at the heart of this industry. I mean, think about the typical pharmacy owner.
Right, they spend years at university.
Exactly. Studying pharmacology, human anatomy, chemistry. They trained to dispense medicine and care for their community. They did not train to be, forensic payroll analysts.
Definitely not.
Yet their single biggest hidden liability on the balance sheet isn't their physical stock of expensive medications. It's not their commercial lease either.
It's the slow, invisible accumulation of payroll errors. And look, I want to speak directly to you listening right now. Even if you don't own a pharmacy or if you've never even worked in one, this deep dive is just a fascinating masterclass.
It really is. It shows how those set-and-forget mentalities in basically any complex environment can quietly build up over years.
Yeah, into an absolute existential crisis. Okay, let's unpack this. Why is paying someone in a pharmacy so uniquely difficult? I mean, shouldn't it just be hours times rate?
You'd think so, right. But to understand the scope of the problem, we have to look at the operating environment itself. There are these compounding factors making compliance under this specific award incredibly hard.
Right.
First off, you have the trading hours. Pharmacies aren't your standard 9 to 5 office.
And they open super early.
Early opens, late closes, and they trade 7 days a week. So that means evenings, Saturdays, Sundays, and public holidays are just constantly in play.
Okay, and under the award, I'm guessing every single one of those specific time periods carries its own unique penalty rate.
Precisely, every single one. So the temporal landscape is completely fragmented. You aren't just paying for an hour of work, you're paying for the specific type of hour.
Man, it's like mixing a highly complex prescription. If you combine all these different staff types with every possible trading hour, isn't a toxic reaction almost guaranteed?
Yeah, and that brings us to the second factor. The workforce itself is incredibly mixed.
How so?
Well, on any given Tuesday morning, a pharmacy might have a full-time pharmacist, a part-time dispensary technician, a casual retail assistant, and maybe a junior worker who is paid on specific age-based rates.
Oh, wow. Plus university students and interns.
Exactly. And they fall under entirely separate classifications.
It sounds like a math equation that is just destined to fail. I mean, if you were plugging all these radically different staff types into every possible variation of trading hours.
The payroll software has to be incredibly sophisticated to handle the order of operations.
Right. It's like using a basic calculator that doesn't understand order of operations to solve, like, advanced calculus.
Yeah.
It's doing math, but the sequence is fundamentally broken.
But hold on, let me stop you there for a second.
Sure.
Because when I hear about wage theft or underpayment in the news, the story's almost always about some greedy corporation actively trying to scam their workers to save a buck. Are you telling me these pharmacies are just doing it by accident?
I mean, that is the common public perception, and it's completely understandable why people jump to that conclusion. But in this sector, the source explicitly notes these errors are rarely deliberate.
Really? Rarely deliberate.
Yeah, it is almost never a case of a rogue owner trying to skim wages. Instead, it's the product of a chaotic, shifting roster and payroll software that was configured once, maybe 5 years ago, and never updated.
Oh, man.
The most common refrain auditors hear during an investigation is, "We didn't mean to?"
I bet, but I'm guessing "we didn't mean to" doesn't hold up in court. Unfortunately, no. we didn't mean to, is absolutely no defense when the Fair Work Ombudsman, which is the ruthless federal regulatory watchdog for workplace laws down there, comes knocking. Ignorance of the complexity doesn't erase the liability.
Which brings us to the first massive trap the analysis outlines. And what really surprised me is that this first trap actually has nothing to do with math or penalty rates. It's entirely about the people.
Right.
It's about what the staff are actually doing on the floor versus what the computer thinks they're doing.
Exactly. This phenomenon is known as classification creep, and it is the silent danger of a mixed workforce. Under the award, pharmacy assistants are grouped into levels 1 through 4.
Okay, sitting alongside those separate classifications for students and pharmacists you mentioned.
Yes. And each level dictates a different minimum pay rate. Just for context, the level 1 base rate is $26.55 an hour, starting from July 1st, 2025.
Okay, so if I run a pharmacy and I hire someone at level 1, I punch that $26.55 into the system. Where does the creep come into play?
Well, let's invent an employee. We'll call her Sarah. So you hire Sarah at level 1. She's enthusiastic, she learns fast, she's great with the customers.
Sounds like a great hire.
She is. And over the next 2 years, Sarah goes and completes a certificate third. That's a specific vocational qualification that legally elevates her capability.
Right.
So she starts handling dispensary support. She takes on the ordering for the front of shop. When new juniors are hired, Sarah is the one showing them the ropes and supervising their shifts.
Her responsibilities have completely transformed.
Exactly. But, and here's the trap, if nobody goes into the payroll software and formally clicks a button to move her from level 1 up to level 2 or 3, her pay doesn't move with her.
Wait, really? So if someone just naturally steps up and takes on more responsibility because they are proactive and driven, the owner actually gets penalized for that?
I know, it sounds counterintuitive.
Because in a normal corporate job, you just take on the extra work, prove your worth, and then you ask for a raise at your annual review, right?
What's fascinating here is if we connect this to the bigger picture of the regulatory framework, the award does not care about corporate ladder climbing.
Okay.
Classification is strictly driven by the duties and competencies an employee actually performs on the floor on any given day. It is not driven by the job title they were given on the day they were hired.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the law doesn't care what Sarah's contract said 2 years ago. It cares what Sarah did last Tuesday. If she was performing level 3 duties, she needed to be paid level 3 wages.
So because she wasn't, the pharmacy is essentially underpaying her for every single hour of every single shift.
Yep. And the software has absolutely no idea this is happening. The system just sees Sarah worked 38 hours. It doesn't have a camera to see that Sarah spent 10 of those hours supervising juniors.
Or doing high-level dispensary support. The system assumes the map is the territory. It assumes the original setting is still reality.
Precisely. This is why misclassification is an entirely invisible error. The only fix for this is a proactive, periodic classification review.
Meaning someone has to actually look at it.
Right. The owner or manager has to manually match every single employee's actual daily duties to the legal definitions in the award. The guide recommends doing this at least annually or immediately whenever a role naturally evolves.
Okay, so step 1 is figuring out exactly who you are paying and locking down their true level. But once an owner actually does that, we move into calculating when they work.
Oh, yes.
And this is where the mathematical minefield really explodes. We need to talk about penalties, overtime, and the software glitches that ruin everything.
This is where pharmacies hemorrhage money in both directions, underpaying and overpaying.
Both directions.
Yeah. The award features incredibly strict penalty rates to compensate for unsociable trading hours. For a permanent employee, Sunday work is paid at time and a half of their base rate.
Makes sense.
Public holidays jump up to 2.5 times the base rate. Then there are specific loadings just for working evenings or working Saturdays.
And overtime.
Overtime, which is for hours worked beyond the ordinary agreed framework, is an entirely separate calculation altogether.
I mean, I can see how running every single hour at a flat base rate is an obvious disaster. If the software isn't award aware, it doesn't even know what a Sunday penalty is.
Exactly.
But the more complex problem is how these rates stack. And there is one specific math glitch mentioned that I really want to dig into, the casual loading double count.
Oh, yes. It is one of the most deceptive mathematical errors out there. Let's break it down with some concrete numbers.
Okay, lay it on me.
So casual workers, they naturally get a 25% loading on top of their base rate to compensate for the fact that they don't get paid sick leave or annual leave.
Right. Let's say the base rate is a flat $20 an hour. Adding the 25% casual loading brings them to $25 an hour for a standard weekday shift. Easy enough.
Now, that same casual employee works on a Sunday.
Yep.
Under the award, Sunday carries a specific casual penalty rate. Let's say that Sunday penalty rate brings the hourly wage to $30. What the payroll software needs to understand is that the $30 Sunday rate already includes their 25% casual loading. It's baked into the final number.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The mistake is that the software sees the $30 Sunday rate, looks at the employee's profile, sees they are casual, and adds another 25% on top of the Sunday rate.
Yes. So instead of paying the correct $30, the system pays $37.50. It's a compounding math glitch.
But let me challenge you on this for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Because if I'm an owner and my software is accidentally double counting a loading, I'm overpaying my staff. Honestly, in a highly regulated environment, overpaying sounds like the safest mistake you could possibly make. You certainly aren't going to get sued by your team for giving them an extra $7 an hour. Why is this considered a trap?
It is a trap for two incredibly important reasons. First, look at the business survival aspect. Community pharmacies operate on extremely tight single-digit margins.
Right, they have a lot of overhead.
They buy very expensive stock up front, they wait for government rebates, and cash flow is a daily tightrope. By overpaying on a Sunday, which is already your most expensive trading period, you are quietly bleeding cash.
You're eroding what little profit margin you have without even realizing it.
Exactly. And the second reason is the regulatory signal.
The signal, like to the auditors.
Yes. If you are audited by Fair Work and the auditor sees you are double stacking casual loadings, it proves to them that your payroll logic is fundamentally broken. It tells them your calculator doesn't understand the sequence.
Oh, I see.
Because if you are overpaying on Sundays due to bad logic, the auditor immediately assumes you must be underpaying somewhere else due to that same bad logic. It triggers a massive forensic review of everything.
Wow.
The point isn't just to pay less, the point is to pay correctly. It's a data integrity issue.
So if the math is wrong in their favor, it just proves the system is fundamentally broken. Okay, so we've navigated the math maze. But then we hit another layer, bringing me back to something you mentioned earlier, the map versus the territory. Right. You can have a perfectly mathematical, award-aware roster, the flawless map. But what happens when that perfect plan collides with the chaotic reality of a busy shop floor?
The territory is where compliance fails silently on a daily basis. The award dictates what are called minimum engagement periods. It means if you call an employee in, you have to pay them for a minimum number of hours, even if they only work for a short stint. But the most insidious example of the map failing the territory is breaks.
Breaks. Yeah, if you're listening to this and you've ever managed a team, you are probably sweating right now thinking about how many times someone skipped a lunch break on a busy Tuesday without telling you.
It happens constantly in a healthcare setting. The roster, the map says, Sarah took a 30-minute unpaid meal break at 1:00 p.m.
And the payroll system just dutifully docks 30 minutes of pay.
Right. But on the floor, the territory, it was flu season, 2 staff called in sick, there was a line of frustrated patients out the door, and Sarah just grabbed a protein bar while continuing to ring up prescriptions.
How can an owner possibly defend against this? Sarah genuinely worked. She chose to skip the break to help the team, but the system assumed she was sitting in the back room for half an hour.
If a break is skipped, or even just shortened by 10 minutes, and the employee works through it, that is unrecorded, unpaid time. In the eyes of the law, it is wage theft by accident.
Man.
The guide strongly recommends that pharmacies stop relying on the theoretical roster to generate payroll. Instead, they need to capture real, actual break times via a digital kiosk or a time and attendance app right on the floor.
Because if you aren't capturing the reality of the territory, you have a compliance gap you don't even know exists until an auditor points it out.
Exactly.
And that leads perfectly into the final hurdle, the paper trail itself. Because even if you do everything right, if your software is perfect, if Sarah takes her exact 30-minute break, if you can't prove it, you're still in trouble.
Oh, 100%. If an auditor queries a figure, the burden of proof falls entirely on the employer. If your payslips don't explicitly itemize allowances, or if your records don't show the exact calculation method for how you arrived at a final figure, you cannot defend yourself.
You just lose by default.
You lose. And one of the most common paper trail failures is simply forgetting to look at a calendar.
Really, a calendar.
Award rates typically change every year on July 1st. If it is September and your system is still blindly running last year's rates, you are underpaying your entire workforce across the board.
Okay, so we have invisible classification creep where duties outpace job titles, a maze of penalty rates, double-counted casual loadings, silently skipped breaks that turn into accidental wage theft, and the heavy burden of itemized record keeping.
It's a lot.
That is already a terrifying gauntlet. But there is a massive catalyst on the horizon that is about to make all of this significantly more dangerous. We need to talk about Payday Super.
This is the regulatory change that will really turn up the heat on all these underlying errors. Historically, employers in Australia could batch their superannuation payments, that's the mandatory retirement contributions, and pay them quarterly.
So they had a 3-month buffer to gather the cash and make the payment.
Yes. But the introduction of Payday Super means that employee superannuation will need to be calculated and paid simultaneously with wages every single pay run.
So what does this all mean? Like, for the pharmacy owner who has these hidden award traps lurking in their system, why is this such an existential threat?
It comes down to cash flow and liquidity. Remember, pharmacies operate on incredibly tight daily liquidity. They're buying tens of thousands of dollars of stock up front.
Right.
When you remove that 3-month buffer for superannuation, payroll and super become a single, simultaneous, highly taxing financial event every week or fortnight.
Wow.
If your base read is wrong because of classification creep, your super calculation is now instantly wrong too. You are immediately reporting that incorrect data to the tax office, and you are bleeding cash without any buffer to catch the error.
It accelerates the compounding effect of the mistakes, and it strips away the liquidity they rely on to operate.
Exactly. And the ultimate risk here is that underpayment liabilities don't just disappear. They accumulate quietly.
Until they don't.
Right.
Yeah.
When an audit finally happens, the liability is typically calculated back over several years across the entire affected team. Add in the missing superannuation, add the compound interest, add the regulatory penalties.
Ouch.
For a business operating on thin margins, a team-wide back pay bill can literally wipe out a year or more of profit in an instant. It can sink the entire enterprise.
And beyond the balance sheet, a community pharmacy's entire brand is built on trust.
Yeah.
You are the trusted health advisor in your neighborhood.
Absolutely.
If the local paper runs a story that you've been underpaying the local staff for 3 years, that community trust just evaporates overnight.
It destroys the very foundation of the business. Plus, the sheer amount of management time consumed by a forensic investigation is staggering. This is a risk that is cheap to prevent, but ruinous to remediate.
So how do we prevent it? What is the actionable takeaway to disarm these landmines before they go off?
The synthesis is quite clear. Pharmacy payroll cannot run on autopilot. Survival requires 3 non-negotiable steps.
Okay, step 1.
Number 1, you must use award-aware payroll software that is specifically configured to the Pharmacy Industry Award, MA00000012. You cannot use a generic flat rate setup or just a manual spreadsheet.
Good. Step 2.
Number 2, you must review classifications and pay rates regularly. At an absolute minimum, this means annually around the July 1st updates and immediately whenever an employee's actual duties change.
You have to make sure the map matches the territory.
Precisely. And number 3, keep clean, highly itemized records. Your data should be robust enough to withstand a Fair Work audit on a quiet Tuesday afternoon without you having to scramble to explain your math.
Makes sense.
The guide notes that Trinity Accounting offers specific reviews for classifications, penalty settings, and Payday Super readiness, precisely because setting this up correctly the first time is the only way to make payroll become like background hygiene rather than a daily existential risk.
It really is a wake-up call. And for you listening, whether you are managing a complex health business, running a tech team, leading a retail store, or honestly just managing your own household budget and personal admin, ask yourself, where is the set-and-forget mentality hiding risk in your world?
It's a vital question.
Where have you assumed the system is working just because it hasn't crashed yet?
Because the absence of an alarm doesn't mean there isn't a fire. It might just mean the battery is dead.
So true. I'll only be with one final thought to mull over. We talk about how the only way to survive this regulatory landscape is to capture the territory perfectly, using digital kiosks, apps, and software to track every single minute of a shift and every skipped break. But if implementing rigid, omnipresent technology tracking is the only way to avoid these massive financial landmines, at what point does managing the data of a workplace completely overtake the human element of actually running a community health business?
Yeah, this raises a really important question about what we are actually optimizing for.
If perfect compliance requires us to monitor every second of our staff's day just to prove they took a 30-minute break, does perfect compliance ultimately require us to treat humans like machines? It's a long way from the simple clinical precision of counting pills. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.